In this video, we're going to create a horizontal audio visualizer using basic HTML, CSS and JavaScript, step by step from scratch, something like this. If you're interested in how to build something like this, then feel free to watch the rest of the video. Before we start coding, I just have two quick comments. The first one is that the whole source code we're going to write in this video, which is around 200 lines of code, will be available as a link in the description beneath the video. So don't fear that you need to pause the video to look at the code. Just tap on the link and we will get the whole source code in front of you. The second comment is that I'm going to look at this direction sometimes, and that's because I have my notes here just to make sure I'm not forgetting a step while we are actually creating this visualizer. So the first thing we need to do here is to create a folder. So on my desktop here, I'm going to just create a folder here and we're going to call it equalizer. And since we're going to create a visualizer of some kind of an audio file, we need a song. So I've already prepared here with a track MP3. So what I'm going to do here is just move it into a folder here and then open up the folder. So as you can see, track MP3 is now in the folder. The next thing I need to do here is open up my developer environment. So I use IntelliJ, so I'm going to open up IntelliJ and target this folder we've just created. So this is basically IntelliJ, as you can see, and it's the same contents here, track MP3 here. The next thing we need to do here is that since we're going to create a visualizer in HTML, we need some kind of a HTTP server. Since I already have Node.js installed on my computer, we can easily just fetch down a basic HTTP server through Node and npm. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up the terminal in my editor, and I'm going to install a npm package called HTTP server. So I'm writing npm install HTTP server. So what this will do is to fetch down the module, and it will create two things in our folder. The first thing it will do is it will create the node modules package folder, and then it will create the package lock.json file. So the next step we need to do here is to start our HTTP server. And that's very easy. We just go into the node modules folder here, into the bin folder, and go to the HTTP server application. So I'm just going to start this. I'm going to start this on a specific port as well. So take 8083. So as you can see, when we started here, it gives us some shortcut links here. So I'm just going to click here, and this will open up my Firefox. And as you can see here, it basically just returns the contents of the folder we just created here. So I'm going back here and I'm going to minimize this terminal. So when I minimize terminal, I actually won't stop the HTTP server. So the next step here we need to do is to create our HTML file. So I'm going to create a new file here called index.html. And in here, we just basically need to create some basic HTML. So let's create HTML tag, a head, and a body tag here as well. And let's put the name on this page here to my equalizer, and let's just write hello world as the body. See if I can increase the font here as well. So maybe it's easier to read on the screen. Okay, save and reload in Firefox, and you'll see that our index.html page has been loaded and we see a hello world. Let's remove the hello world. So the next thing I think we need to do is to have some kind of a neat background for our visualizer. So we need to find an image somewhere and add it to a background to our page. So what we can do is go to pixels.com and see if we can find a cool background image we can use. So we probably need something which is a bit dark. So maybe this one. And we can see here, if we press on info, we can see that this image is free to use, no attribution required. So let's just take it. So let's download it. And we're going to save this in our folder equalizer, but I'm going to rename this to background.jpg. So this will create background JPEG here, and in our editor we will see that we have a background JPEG here as well. So the next step here is to make this to our background in our page. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to create a div. Let's see. We're going to add the class name background to it. And then I'm going to add some CSS. So I'm going to create a style tag here, target the background div here, the background class. And what we want to do here is to have this basically like a full screen page. So I'm going to put this to absolute position. And I want it to be border to border. So top 0, right 0, bottom 0, and left 0. Then I actually need to load in the background image. So I'm going to do background image, URL, and then I'm going to target the background image here. Then we need to have a positioned. So we want it horizontally in middle, and then you want it vertically in middle. So I'm just going to type center, center. But we also want it, the size of this background image to cover the whole page. So let's put cover. So save, reload, and we will see here that we have now this image as our background. But it's a bit too detailed, I would say. So it would be nice if you could blur it. So let's put a CSS blur on it. And let's try with 15 pixels. So I'm writing filter blur 15 pixels. Okay, so this becomes blurry, which is a bit better. But as you can see, when we blur something here, it will look like this in the borders, this white. And that's because our background is white as well, so it becomes a bit blurry. So a way to compensate to this is to basically move our div background a bit up, a bit down, left and right, so we expand it a bit. So instead of the top being 0, let's put that in the negative 50 pixels. So we'll start, slightly above the view screen here. And we're going to do that on all sides. And then refresh. So we can see that the white border has been removed here, but we are getting these scroll bars instead. So to remove the scroll bars, we basically target the body here and put the overflow hidden. So, okay, so I think this is a good start. It's a gorgeous background, but it would be nice if we had some kind of a text here as well. So what I'm going to do here is create another div. I'm going to put a class here, and let's call it truck title. Truck title. And then we need to apply some CSS here as well. So we target the truck title class name. And we need this to be positioned absolute as well, but we want this to start maybe at 200 pixels down. So maybe around here the text will start. And we need the right to be next to the corner or border, and on the left side here as well, 0. Okay, so we want the color to be white, we want our text to be white, we want font family to be better, so let's use a Calibri font family. Font size, let's try with 100 pixels so the text becomes bigger, and we want this to be aligned in center as well, so let's take text align center. Save, reload. Oh yeah, okay, so we need some text here as well. So let's take awesome song here. Okay, so we have text here now in our visualizer what describes the song title. So the next thing we need to do is to apply the music itself to the page. So what we can do here is to create a new audio tag. we specify the source property, and we're going to target our track mp3, and we're going to show our controls here as well. However, since these two, the background and the track title, are positioned absolute, this will be automatically hidden, right? We saw it in a brief second, but it's actually beneath this. So let's do a quick fix here and just put the SATA index to 2. We probably need a position here as well, position absolute. Okay, so we now have imported the song as an audio element here, and we can probably play it and see what happens. Okay, so we've imported the song now, so everything is good. The next thing we need to do here is to start adding some JavaScript, because how we actually visualize this and render it will actually be done in JavaScript. So let's create a script tag here, and we're going to use some best practices here as well. So we're going to create something called a self-executing or self-invoking function. So we create a new function here, but then we're going to wrap it, and then we're going to execute it immediately. And let's test our self-invoking function by creating an alert and create hello world. Okay, so JavaScript works. A hello world pop-up appears. That's good. Okay, so the next thing we need to do here is we need to start to analyze this audio file in order to create the visualization. So when you create a visualizer, you actually analyze the song in real time to get a lot of properties out of it, the frequencies. So what we need to do here is basically, let's first create a variable that targets the audio element. So let's create audio equals document.query selector. And since we only have one audio element here, we can immediately just type audio here. So this variable here points to this now, which means that we could play the song immediately when we start the page or load the page. So save, reload. So Firefox is blocking this, so I need to allow this again. So the song is immediately started, so that's good. Okay, so next step is a bit geeky here, and we need something called audio context. So an audio context is an API which exists in the browsers. So MDN audio context, and this is an interface that basically creates a context about audio. So you can read here more about what it does. But there are some examples here. For example, we need to do something like this. We need to create an audio context. So let's copy this row here and just paste it in. Const, and let's call this context immediately. Okay, so we've created something called an audio context. Let's put a better comment here, and is create an audio context. And let's put a comment here as well, is get the audio element tag. Okay, so we've created the audio context. So the next step here is we need to create something called a media element source. So how this technically works is that you have a source, we're going to analyze it by creating an analyzer, and then we're going to pipe it back to the destination. So we're basically going to create like a middleware system here, where we load in the audio track, then pipe it to our analyzer, and from the analyzer, pipe it back to the context, basically creating middleware. So the next step here, what we need to do is create an audio source. Const audio source, and we can do this from the audio context object immediately. So we create a media element source, and then you need to specify what source do we want to put in. And we need to put in the song here, the track mp3, this tag here. So we just put in audio here. So add a better comment here so we actually remember what we are doing here. So we're creating an audio source. Okay, so we've created an audio source. The next thing we need to do here is to create the analyzer. So analyzer is another part of the web or part of the browser API. So create analyzer audio source. So it's called the analyzer. I think it's called, okay, it's this one here, base audio context, create an analyzer. So basically it's this we're going to do, create analyzer. So let's copy that. So const analyzer, and this is from our context again, base audio context, create analyzer. So we're going to put a better comment here as well, create an audio analyzer. Okay, so we've created a source, we've created an analyzer, we created a context, but we need to pipe these three things, actually creating middleware. So this is where it becomes a bit complicated, but you probably understand what will happen. So we're going to connect the source to the analyzer and then back to the context destination. So this is basically two lines. So it's let's see here, audio source connect, what we're going to first connect it with, we're going to connect it to the analyzer. So this audio source, which is basically our MP3, we're going to connect back to the analyzer. So pipe it through here, and then we're going to pipe it back to the context destination. So basically what we've done here is created a middleware, right? The analyzer is the middleware. So if we just save here and go back to our Firefox browser here and just refresh, I think we're going to hear the song and nothing else. It will be like nothing has happened because we have piped this through an analyzer and back to the destination. So since we have created this analyzer here, we can fetch the frequencies from this audio file. So let's do that for fun so we can see how it looks like. So we need to let's print out the frequencies. Print the analyze frequencies. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to let's see here, create a new variable, and we're going to okay, analyze, and here we can get the byte frequency data. Okay, this is the function we're going to use, but as you saw here, we need some kind of input. So let's go back to MDN, and let's see here. You can see here that this is an example of the code here, get byte frequency. The input here is an array, but it's a special kind of an array that exists in browsers. It's a uint8 array. So it's an array, but it's a specific type, a special type of array. So we need to create this array as well. So we're going to copy this, and we need to do this before anything else. So we're going to call this, let's see, frequency data. So how large is this array going to be? Well, it's going to be as large as number of frequencies we have, right? So let's go back to the analyzer here. And if we look at the frequency bin count, so this will tell us how many frequencies there are. So based on this, we're going to create our array to the same length. So we create an array here called frequency data, the same length as the number of frequencies we have. And then we're going to put this frequency data as an input to this get a byte frequency data. Basically, we're going to populate this array with frequencies. That's what's happening. And let's do a console log here so we can actually see what's going on. And I will show you how it looks like. So we've created an array here. We're putting the array as an argument into this frequency data, so it gets populated, and then we're going to print out the frequency data. So open up developer tools here and reload. Let's pause it here as well. And here we can see our frequency data object, which is a UE int array. And here we can see the length, the number of frequencies is 1024. So we have 1024 frequencies. And then basically a frequency is an integer between 0 and I think it's 255. So it's a 256 slot or 256 valued integer. Okay, so that's good. We can also, so I don't become deaf, I'm going to adjust the volume here on this track to 0.025 here for the time being. So after we've done this, we need to create some kind of a visualizer, I think. So beneath this track title, would be nice if we could create, the visualizer here. So let's start by creating a basic container. Let's go up to the HTML here again, create a new div, put a class name, and I'm going to call this visualizer container. Then we need some CSS on this here, visualizer container. So let's see here, position absolute, like always. But we're going to start from the bottom here again. And I think let's try 450. So from the bottom, 450 pixels up. Then right 0, left 0. And just to make sure that we can actually see what's going on, let's put a background to red. And let's put a height to 200 pixels. Let's see what I've missed here. Visualizer container, background, red. So what did I miss here? Position absolute, visualize container. See if there are any typos here. Visualize container here. Background blue. That's really weird. Okay, I don't know why red didn't work here. Background. Oh, right, it's not the string. Right, okay. So this is our container. This is where we're going to visualize the bars here. So let's create a bar here as well for fun. So inside our container here, we're going to create a new div. We're going to end the div here, and we're going to apply the class name visualizer container __ bar. And then we need some CSS here as well. So what we need to do here is to make it, so this will be each bar in a visualizer. So the first thing we need to do is put display inline block. We want the background to be white. We want white bars, right? Margin, nothing on top, nothing beneath, but we want them to be 2 pixels spaced between each other. We want each bar to be 25 pixels in width, and let's put a height on 200 just for test right now. So this is one bar we've added to visualizer. And we probably want this in the middle here as well. So let's go back to the container and put a text align center. We can also remove this red now. So this is our first bar, right? And we've hard coded this bar, so it isn't ideal here. So what we want to do here really is to create a series of bars here, one for each frequency. So we will do this by creating these div elements programmatically with JavaScript. So the first thing we need to do here is create a set of predefined bars. So we have a for loop, and let's create a variable I, start on 0. So how many times are we going to do this? Well, we're going to do this the same length as the frequency array length, which we know because we looked at the console is 1024. So 1024. And we're going to increment this. So we're going to do this around 1000 times. In here, we're going to programmatically create our bar. So let's create a new variable, bar, and then document.create element. We're going to create this as a div. Then we're going to set an attribute here. We're going to put an ID on this. And this ID will start with the text bar, but then put the number. So the first bar will have the ID bar 0. Then the second will have bar 1, and so on. We also need to apply the CSS class, so another set attribute class, and then this here, visualizer container bar. Okay, so we created a basic div here programmatically, and then we need to append this element to the container. So let's go back here, and we need to create a container. So get the visualizer container, const visualizer container document.query query select, and that's a class name, and it is this class name we're going to use. Query select or, and then we're going to put append child, and we're going to append the bar child here. So what this for loop here will do is we're going to loop around 1000 times and create 1000 bars. So let's try that. We're also going to remove this hard-coded bar we created up here. So as you can see, we have programmatically created 1024 bars, one for each frequency, appended it to the container. So there is a lot of bars here, as you can see here to the right. So this is good so far. We could make these to 100, so you can see more here. So each bar here. But so it isn't really fun, this so far. So the next step we need to do is to start to make this moving here. And we need to have an update function to do that. So we actually apply some, adjust all the heights and everything. So let's create a render frame function here. And we're going to call this immediately as well. And let's add a comment here. This function has the task to adjust the bar heights according to the frequency data. Okay, so the first thing it needs to do here is to ask the analyzer, give me all the frequencies right now as the first step, and then we're going to need to loop through all the bars and adjust the heights. So analyzer, and then we're going to, just like we did up here, analyzer get byte frequency data. We're basically going to update our array with the latest frequencies. So update our frequency data array with the latest frequency data. Okay, so we've updated our array here now. We need to loop through all our bars, and we know that we have this. We can basically copy this for loop, right? It's the same thing here. But in here, we need to fetch our frequency data from our array. So const fd frequency data, then put in I. So this fd here now will contain a value between 0 and 255. Okay. The next thing we need to do is to fetch our bar. Let's put a comment here. Fd is the frequency data value between 0 and 255. Then we need to fetch our bar here. Fetch the bar, and then we're going to do document.query selector, just as usual here. Selector query selector. Since this is a class name, right? Oh, so this is an ID. So if you remember, we put an ID up here called ID, and then bar, then the number. So we put here, and then bar, and then the ID here. So bar here should fetch the actually bar div element. The next, so just to make sure our application doesn't crash, if the bar doesn't exist, if it's undefined, just continue. You know, and this is just, you know, defensive programming, just in case something happens. That's not to ruin the whole thing. So we need to determine how high the bar should be. So bar height. Let's take this FD value, but if for some reason it is undefined, let's have let's default it to 0. So FD, unless it's undefined to 0, let's default it to 0 here. However, we maybe want each bar to have a minimum height of 4. So if there isn't any frequency, like if that frequency of the song is like not played, we still want it visually represented. So let's put a math.max for all this, and then put so if FD is 2, we will have at least 4, and then let's just apply the height here. Bar height, and add a unit pixels. Okay, so let's try this and see what happens. So the thing here is that we've created these bars, we have adjusted the heights, but we're doing it before we've actually started the song. So it doesn't really make sense right now. But there isn't any crashes here, which means that our JavaScript is so far good. But maybe we should update our render frame, you know, continuously as the song is being played. So let's do that by creating a basic interval. So set interval, and then we're going to call render frame here, and let's say we do this every second. Let's put a console here also and call it tick. So each second we're going to call this render frame, which basically fetches all the latest data, loop through all the bars, and adjusts the height. So let's see what happens. So every second now, as you can see, we're fetching all the frequency data and adjusting all bars. So this is pretty smooth. I mean, we can see that it's starting to shape up here a bit. We can also remove the height of these bars down here in this visualizer container bar. Okay, that's point. However, every 1 second isn't good enough. We could make it to 1, but we could also use the request animation frame, which is in browser. Request animation frame MDN. And it is this function. So basically what you can do is, tell the browser, next time you're going to render a frame, we would like to call our code. So let's see if we have example here. Window request animation frame. So at the end of this render frame function, let's apply window request animation frame, but let's call back our render frame. So at the next animation frame, call ourselves. So we don't really need this set interval. So this is going to be insane. This is going to loop like crazy all the time. So make sure that you code this in a safe way, because if you have a console log here, it will just spam the browser and will probably crash the browser. The same thing is that if you have if we were to put this inside our for loop here, it will crash our browser. But I think this is a safe spot to put it. So let's try here again. Render frame will do this once, and then it will tell the browser to loop this. Let's try. So as you can see here, our visualizer is much fluent here. And this is a really good start. However, I think that having 1000 bars is it's a bit too much. Okay? So I would like to narrow this down a bit. So let's go on top of our code here and let's create, const number of bars. Let's put 50. Okay. Let's put a comment here. The number of bars that should be displayed. So when we create our bars in here, create our predefined bars, we're not going to use our frequency length anymore. We're going to create this number of bars, 50. And when we're going to loop, to update the height of each bar, we're going to loop our number of bars. So this should be 50 bars. And as you can see, it's a bit okay. But it is a bit jumpy here as well, as you can see. Let's see. So what we could maybe do here is, let's see. I wonder how we okay. So this looks okay, I think. So we need to remove a height on our visualizer, because some bars are like 255, we can't hard code it. So this looks much better now. However, here's the thing. We know, whoa, Jesus. We know that we have 1000 frequencies, but we're only rendering 50 bars right now, right? Which means that of the whole spectrum of frequencies, we're just going to focus on the first 50, which is a small part of the song. We probably want a visualizer that will encapsulate like the whole length of frequencies. So what we can do here instead is that when we after we have updated the frequencies, and instead of getting up to index 50 here, let's spread out our sample thing. So if our frequencies is 1000, instead of fetching 1 to 50, let's space them out. So we take 0, 5, 10, 15, so we get, broader spectrum. So what we could do here is, like, instead of applying index here, let's create a new index. Remove this, create a new variable called index, and this might be I plus 10 times 2. And you can adjust this, you know, you can do whatever you want to do. But this will basically fetch more frequencies in the spectrum. And we add it to the frequency data here. So FD now is the frequency. So FD is still frequency value between, it's still between 1 and 52, 1 and 255. So let's try this again. So as you can see here, we haven't really gone, we're not using the whole spectrum here. It's still a bit quiet here. And previously, all of the bars were used because we were only listening to the first 50, but now we're using a larger sample data. So this is good. So we're going to hide this element here again. So we're going to remove our quick fix here. And we're going to close here. And we're going to make this full screen. And then we're going to refresh. So this is how you make a horizontal frequency visualizer in JavaScript using 200 lines of code of HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, basically. So if you liked this tutorial, feel free to put a like on the video, and good luck creating visualizers. Thanks.